few more minutes as he gets to sort that out. So welcome to GYF, to all those who are joining us online. Thank you for our session. Once again, we are able to host our end month session. We usually host one session per month in our Ordinary Voices studios, and it is a pleasure to have you today. So allow me to introduce GYF as an organization. Our mission is to be able to impact the lives of young people through life skills coaching, mentorship, and sports program. And with the necessary skills, we believe that the young people in Kenya can be able to secure a job for themselves or create an enabling environment for them to have, to create income generating activities for them to improve their lives and eradicate poverty. And of course, our vision is to be a leading youth NGO in Africa, supporting young people in co-creating a better future for themselves. And at GYF, we have different programs. And how we are able to achieve this, first of all, we have Sports for SDGs, whereby GYF provides an inclusive global sporting platform to enable like-minded individuals, especially higher learning institutions, to be able to participate in sports activities using the 17 SDG goals. And the idea behind this is to be able to address each of the United Nations SDGs, that's the Sustainable Development Goals, and using each of these sports, we use them as a tool to be able to mobilize resources to implement the project. And in addition to that, we did have our Football for Peace tournament this year, where we involve 17 teams for both genders, that is male and female, from the tertiary learning institutions to be able to compete. And the idea, of course, is to promote the message on SDGs and try to engage the youth to come up with solutions to eradicate poverty in Kenya. We also have Molding for Work, which is a program whereby students from institutions are able to join a one-year program. And in this program, they have different units, and the program goes in 3 phases. And the young people are able to learn different skills, and they're able to also afterwards be able to participate in internships or apprenticeships, volunteering, attachment opportunities, and also this could be part of the opportunities of volunteering, could also be part of GYF activities. That is, after you're done with the Molding for Work program, you can be able to volunteer at GYF. And then, of course, last but not least, we have Ordinary Voices, which is today's session. And this Ordinary Voices Studios is a platform where we provide a safe and inclusive space for every Kenyan, everyday Kenyan, and of course now engaging worldwide, because we do have some international guests, to be able to speak or discuss issues affecting them, their communities, propose solutions that can be able to mitigate some of these problems, and of course mobilize like-minded individuals to implement these solutions. So I think and then there's one more before I forget. There's Archery for the Goals, whereby we use archery activities and sessions to provide practical goal-setting skills for the young people. So until there, allow me now to bring in the guests once again to just introduce what they do and to tell me what is their favorite SDG. So for our guests today, thank you again for participating in this session. It is a pleasure to have you. And before we begin the session officially, I'd like to engage both of you to tell me who you are, what you do, what is your favorite SDG, and what change would you like to see in the world. I don't know if Abra, you can be able to hear me, because at the beginning you're not. Kindly confirm. Oh, unfortunately, we are still unable to hear you. So I think maybe our technical person can be able to assist on that end. So maybe Peter, you can be able to find out from Abra maybe where the issue could be. And as we proceed, Michael, kindly introduce yourself again. No need to introduce your name. You can tell me what you do, what is your favorite SDG goal, and what change you want to see in the world.
Okay, thank you once again. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to participate in the Ordinary Voices of the Global Youth Forum. My name is Michael Mbaluto Mutinda. Like I said, I'm a lawyer by profession. I'm also a certified professional mediator. That means that I encourage the use of alternative means to justice resolution mechanisms. My favorite SDG is SDG 16 on promotion of peace and access to justice. And perhaps this is because this is my area, or it relates to what I practice on a daily basis. That's why I think I'm able to relate to SDG 16 far much better as compared to other other SDGs. SDG 16 seeks to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, and provide access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. I would like to see a world where we can all be included, especially as it relates to, for example, issues to do with climate change, where we talk about intergenerational equity, whereby the adults, or rather, the adults have to involve the children and the youth in the present day decision-making processes, because at the end of the day, the world tomorrow is where the children and the youth will be living in. And so I fully and want to relate with SDG 16, although I also do recognize other SDGs. And like I said, the main thing is that SDG 16 interlinks with all other SDGs, because once we are able to create an enabling environment through accountable institutions, then we can be able to appreciate all other SDGs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Baluto. I think, Chair, I can jump to you.
Yeah, Michael, thank you. I totally agree so much with you on that. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Maybe just a brief introduction on your end also. Tell us who you are.
Well, I've already said who I am and what I do currently for Global Youth Forum. I won't say so much what I do now, because I'm sort of semi-retired, but I spent 35 years working for HP, Hewlett Packard, as a senior business consultant, and they used to, pay me to fly around the world and dive in not very nice places, I always say, because I'm a scuba diver, as I used to tack little days on to the end or partway through events. But I used to travel the world and speak for defence and homeland security from Hewlett Packard's perspective. After retirement, my wife and I went on a couple of cruises and did all the kind of things you do. And then I got very bored and joined a business breakfast club, whereby I very quickly managed to start a number of businesses, looking at varying different things. So I currently run 2 businesses, and I'm just about to get rid of one and start a third. As that comes up, because although I've spent some 65 years circling the sun and have had some awesome times, I'm still got plenty of energy to do things with. So Global Youth Forum actually has a lot of call of my time, and I'm delighted to be able to give that, and actually to see the achievements and strides we're now making. And my favorite SDG is number 1, no poverty. Because I believe that actually, if we manage to achieve that one, all the other goals actually fall into place and are achievable anyway, automatically, because we have that one. And that's not the key focus of people's minds, is I need to feed myself and my children, or I must get something to eat to survive. Once that's taken away, people will focus on other things. And therefore, if we can get no poverty, that's the real one for me. The one change I'd like to say, one change? Oh, you don't know how some hard questions.
Just one out of the many.
Equality and inclusivity for all. That we are all recognized, every single one of us, for the huge value we bring to each other as we hurtle through space on this small rock. The real value that everyone brings is immense. No matter what we do, what we've done historically or whatever, it is about now. And to follow on from that, really, I would say the young people aren't the leaders of tomorrow. They actually they are the leaders of today. It was yesterday that they were growing up. They're the leaders today. And that's why someone of my ilk tends to support this and is so encouraging, because it is together in partnership, as Michael rightly says, in partnership that we can really, really achieve stuff.
Thank you for that. Thank you for both, of course, Michael and the chair. I don't know, Abra, if you're able to get us. Maybe, are you able to speak?
Hi.
Yes.
Hi. Finally.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me with you guys. I'm
You're
Abrar.
welcome.
I'll take a moment to introduce myself. I am by passion, I'm a social worker, and by profession, I'm a budding entrepreneur catering to the needs of the construction industry. I am from the green city of India, Bangalore. Born and brought up in Bangalore, based out of Bangalore.
Yep.
Into supporting few social activities, and also working towards thriving humanity and bringing about a change. Thank you for having me.
And what is your favorite SDG?
My favorite SDG is education. I like to bring about a change in people by educating them, and so that, because education is an important tool, I believe. So
it is.
Educating each and every one becomes people. It helps people to become more and more informative and literate. So improving the literacy will in turn lead to giving them a self-sustained life. So that's what I believe. And also regarding the other favorite SDG would be climate. Climate is something that we all must be concerned about right from the budding age.
Oh, okay, thank you for that. And what one change would you like to see in the world?
Equality and inclusivity, as rightly mentioned by Mr. Garrett. Equality and inclusivity is something that I believe should be practiced from a very young age, right from the school, right from the preschool, so that people try to accept what the society needs, and what is being accepted and practiced in the society is something that we can bring about a small change.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that feedback. Welcome once again to the session. And I'm happy you've had, majority of you have said equality. How comes you're saying equality and SDG 5 is not part of your favorite SDGs? Gender equality should be top of your favorite SDGs if you believe in inclusivity. But nonetheless, of course,
right,
all
that's
SDGs
one of the domain that where I work on gender sensitization and gender equality, wherein we work on the women and women entrepreneurs, try to bring and uplift the people from the community and also from other communities as well.
Exactly. And I think maybe India and Kenya could have a similar context. And I don't want to say not because we're developing countries, but I feel we've had a similar background. But other than that, I think we can kick into the questions of the day. So Abra, allow me to start with you. Are you okay?
Yes.
Ready? Perfect. So I would like to start with you. And I would like to ask, in your view, how can the youth promote inclusion and accessibility, especially in our cities? And for your context in India, what do you believe that the youth can do to promote inclusion and accessibility for persons with disability, particularly?
Right. Talking about the persons with disabilities, you should create an awareness. Initially, awareness is something that I believe that will become one strength of the people. Like, what are the requirements and the prerequisites of the people with disabilities require? Like, for example, we can go for the Braille. You might be aware of the Braille, right? And in case of like small implements, what people can do is they can look after like building up accessible resources, like in terms of ramp, like making sure each and every building or each and every infrastructure while it's being built contains a ramp, so that people with disability also can access to it. So that's one thing. Access to elevators, like they can start advocating youth, and also like youth can start raising their voices, like this is our need, this is something that is a necessity these days. That's how it has to be inculcated with right from the preschool or schools or high secondary schools. So that's what I believe.
Thank you for that, Abra. And I like the fact that you also mentioned your context. And I think I would like to understand, for you as a youth in India, do you believe that maybe you've seen other countries that are doing a bit better in terms of accessibility and inclusivity for PWDs compared to maybe your country? Even if it's not just the other countries, but even in your country, maybe like the cities, do you believe maybe there's a better access or a more inclusive environment for PWDs in the capital city compared to maybe other marginalized areas?
Right. While considering the marginalized areas, where I see that there's a lot that can be more done. There are a lot of points, and that has to be influenced and reached through the like policymakers, so that they take to consider these points as important, and they can try to include these with the help of adequate resources, and with the help of creating and educating people, and also creating much awareness, and also like giving the people an extra opportunity for the people with disabilities, because they lack in one thing, it doesn't mean that we'll have to ignore them, whereas they, instead of that, they carry in another strength. So instead of looking at someone who is disabled, why don't we look at them as able persons or specially able? So that's what I believe would actually make them provide them with a better space and better positioning in the society.
I like the rebranding of that name. Thank you, Abra. I think I can go to, yes, Chair. I see your hand is raised.
Val, it was just a follow through really, because for me, one of the big things, I think we're all very helpful, supportive of what we can see, the disabilities we can see with people, but it's those hidden disabilities are often the ones which people suffer most with, various mental health conditions, educational conditions, and various bits and pieces. And we can't see those, and it's very easy for us to assume that someone is just being awkward or is just being whatever, and not be helpful to them, and actually just not recognizing the issues that they have. And I think while as certainly around the area I live, we've made fantastic strides in that kind of inclusivity and equality for people that have very visible disabilities, but it's those that don't, and it's the mental health ones, and yet I think there are people around that can really be so supportive and giving to society by their skills. Those people with ADHD, for example, they're very focused and often very into very niche mathematics or drawings or artworks, and that is fabulous stuff they produce, but often goes unrecognized and doesn't get the same level of recognition. So it's a follow through really of what Abba was saying, and if globally places that haven't started on that journey can also put that at the very start, oh boy, will that be a great way forward.
Definitely. And I like the fact that you've actually mentioned the very, I want to say ignored illnesses, because when I'm looking at it, especially in our Kenyan context, mental illness used to be a very big thing, whereby a lot of people who had issues with mental illness were actually stigmatized for that. And then we also see even in our laws and inclusivity in terms of legislature, we still see there's a challenge when having to include, as you're saying, for example, someone who has dyslexia, someone who is autistic. It's very difficult for them to actually feel included in a lot of these things. Even, for example, like the voting process, how easy is it for a lot of this mentally challenged, I don't say mental challenge, but special needs people, how much support do they actually get when it comes to engaging in their rights? Something like voting. How often do we have autistic people come to vote? Most of the times we don't see them. I've been an observer in the elections, and I haven't seen any in the polling stations that I've attended to. So thank you for that follow through. I think now I can go to Michael. I would like to pick your mind, especially because you're in Kenya, and we know about the reject the finance bill, and we know what has been happening in terms of the political unrest in Kenya. So I'd just like to ask you, considering the Gen Z's growing influence on Kenyan politics, do you believe that youth-led efforts, such as maybe mediation or dialogue, can actually persuade the government to take more inclusive and deliberate actions towards building more sustainable cities and communities for us, especially for us as Kenyans? Do you believe us negotiating with power is actually going to get us somewhere?
Well, thank you for that question. Now, it is very important for us to be able to understand what is a mediation process. A mediation process is whereby a neutral person comes in between two parties who are in a dispute and is able to listen to both sides and come up with an agreement that is party interest, that has the party's interest at on the table, or rather concerns put in place, rather than the legal policy or regulatory frameworks. And so the youth, I believe, can really benefit from such negotiations or mediation processes, because a mediation process can be able to bring in the issues of stakeholder engagements, because the youth cannot be able to meet some of the government officers, or rather some of the people in private business, but through such mediation processes, they will be able to meet with such persons or rather institutions, and come up with decisions that are party, that have the party's interests at heart, so that we can ensure that even as we build these sustainable communities and cities, then the youth's voice, who, like I said, once we apply the principle of intergenerational equity, are the ones that are going to be in this world tomorrow, and they're going to also be the governors tomorrow. So it is very important for us to include the youth in these processes. And so mediation provides a platform for stakeholder engagement. It provides a platform for conflict resolution. It would also provide a platform whereby there is a sense of social inclusion. Like we said, currently in Kenya, the marginalized, the youth and women continue to suffer out of the socioeconomic problems that we are going through. And so mediation process will really assist us in terms of achieving the sustainable development goals. Thank you.
And thank you so much for that, Michael. And just to pick your mind, looking at the fact that the president suspended his whole cabinet and then brought back a new cabinet, but then looking at the fact that there was some, based on what the young people were expecting, we had fought for a more professional cabinet secretary. But then looking at what we have, most of the people who have also been part of this cabinet, the ones that have been brought back, are not people who have shown effective leadership. So maybe in your view, do you think the government is ready to actually listen to young people and consider their best interests at heart, looking at how it has already behaved with selecting the new cabinet?
And I think that is a problem that we continue to suffer, not only in Kenya, but basically around the world, that, politicians or leaders do not want to involve the youth. And this is what the Gen Zs are saying, that, kindly listen to us, kindly listen to what we have to say. We have already shown, or rather, some of these parties have already been shown to lack integrity and leadership. And so it's not basically a Kenyan problem only, but a problem in the world. And so, whereas we are not yet at where we should be, I think the Gen Z revolution, or rather, if I may call it so, really provided a platform where we can begin having this negotiation. As you have seen, they are meeting, I think, on daily basis on the X platform. I think where they raise their issues, but not only raise, but also be able to act on them. Personally, I've been advocating for the youth to register numerously as voters so that they can make these changes that they want come in 2027. Thank you.
Well,
I
thank you so much
Michael
for that,
makes some wonderful points there, and I agree, because globally we still have this whole issue, and he who shouts loudest gets heard, and that's not the right. But there are ways to shout, I think, and if you can go through the right process and still shout, then you are heard in the correct way. And learning to vote is one thing, and certainly part of it. But gathering in political groups to actually, not in violent groups, but in political groups, to actually drive an agenda can have a huge impact on any government. And you know, if it's going to looks like it may destabilize them, they will act in protectionism, if nothing else. You know, so I've seen it with the UK government. I've seen it with other governments globally and stuff. There's bits going on in France at the moment, isn't there? And stuff. So you know, it's not unique. It is a way. And Michael, yes, I and people around Ordinary Voices and Global Youth Forum have heard me say many times, there are at least 3 sides to any discussion. There's what you think, there's what I think, and there's the reality. Val.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you're done. Okay. Thank you, Chair. And I think also, just to follow through with your point, do you believe there's a better way to shout? Let me ask you, in terms of advice, what would you advise the Kenyan people? What would be the best way to make noise that is effective, especially with the current government that we have right now?
Yeah, if I particularly look inside Kenya, it's around getting together within the law, the political system, and pulling those levers correctly, both up and down the chain from where you sit. And that's the important thing. So it's identify where that is. So you use media, and use media in a professional way, with a strong voice, with significant numbers, and provide enough pressure to the government through local representatives, local MPs, you know, everything, so that everything is done in the right way. Whatever political party those MPs belong to, they need to be pressurized into raising it in the parliament. And that starts to really cause big problems then, because, you know, the government has to do something. And when you look at the proportions of young people to the rest of the population in Kenya, then, you know, if they're not going to respond to that, they are in big trouble.
Very true.
The weight of the young people there is such that it you know, they have to.
Okay, thank you. And I like the fact that you sound very hopeful. I can assure you our government is not very receptive. And I think Michael can agree with me in that department. Our MPs are actually bought to accept some of these terms. I remember with the finance bill, it was a whole issue with our leaders. But anyway, we are hoping for the best. Thank you for that session. And I just want to encourage the ones who are listening to us, feel free to send your questions or to share your response to us, and we'll be able to address it. If you're sharing or seeing this after the session, also feel free to engage with us on our social media platforms. Proceeding well, I think, Abra, I would like to engage you once again, and I'd like to understand from you, what are two unique challenges that the youth face when advancing for inclusion, especially when it comes to their rights or maybe some of their freedoms? What do you believe are 2 unique challenges that the youth face when advocating for inclusion? And what solutions would you propose to those problems?
One is the social stigma which the people face these days. Prejudice and discrimination create an additional barrier between the people, youth who are trying to communicate. And that is something, the social stigma has to be brought out of the society, and then they should start including people. And then lack of communication is another one thing that I believe. Like people with special needs to be communicated. They need someone who can effectively listen to them, because they have a lot to speak out, whereas the younger generations don't have that much of patience to give them a listening ear, to actually sit with them for a longer time, try to understand what is that they want to put it out to someone who can patiently and effectively listen to them.
Okay, thank you. And
so
I
that
think
is something which we will have to.
sorry, did I cut you off? Are you okay? So are you okay? Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah, I was just saying, I'm interested in your point. You've mentioned something about communication, and I think I've also had the chair speak about communication. And maybe I can just ask you, from your perspective, do you believe there's a disconnect in terms of how the young people and the rest, let me say the rest, are maybe communicating, or what is it that the young people maybe are saying to the older generation that maybe is being lost somewhere there? Do you think there's a disconnect that we need to bridge to be able to understand one another?
Yes, there's a slight gap that has to be bridged between like the communication. Communication is something which effectively, when done, helps people to overcome difficulties or challenges or limitations. It be it anything, like they can either communicate with the ones whom they feel comfortable, so that they try to propose a solution, or they try to get out of grief.
Okay, thank you for that. And Michael, to also pick your mind on the topic of discussion, how would you advise the youth of today to navigate some of the political obstacles? For example, the way we are seeing the government oppression, people are being abducted and things like that. There's a lot of murder, especially femicide, that is happening. So what would you advise the youth to be able to do to navigate some of these obstacles? You can give us maybe two reasons, or maybe 2 pointers.
Okay, thank you. One of the main ways that the youth can be able to, overcome, or rather ensure that the changes that they want are conducted in a sustainable manner, is by creating awareness, about the rights, whether digital, whether political rights, just creating awareness. Because you see, even though the Gen Z were able to demonstrate, I do believe that they were not able to achieve the targets because they did not know what's next after the demonstrations. And I think if they had been educated well on their political rights, they can form a political party. They can, be able to prepare so that they can choose their representatives in a manner that, because currently, even though people are demonstrated, I believe that most of the youths will still be bought come 2027. Look at the economic crisis that we are currently in. So creating awareness is one of the main things that we can be able to do. Another thing is strategic advocacy. You find that people are just advocating, they don't know why they're advocating. So a strategic advocacy mechanism ensures that we are able to have a background, or rather a starting point. And we are also able to ensure that through the transition, and even as we seek to achieve an end goal, then we are able to meet not only present needs, but also future needs. For example, we should be able to have an advocacy mechanism that says, okay, here is the history of a finance bill, or rather, this is how a finance bill comes into place. And then these are the processes, that being the present. And then this is how it goes, or rather, this is what you should have in the future, so that even as we are raising taxes, even as we are raising issues through the finance bill, then we can have a youth that is well informed, that is able to make decisions that are, clear and sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Michael. And I think I like the fact that you've brought the access to information out of your point, because I feel like that is actually one of the very big fundamental rights that young people should actually take seriously. Because as you're saying, majority of the youth in the beginning were fighting the finance bill without actually knowing what the finance bill is saying. So you're fighting for something as part of a group, but when you do not have the understanding of what exactly you're fighting for, then maybe the fight is not going to be so worth it to the end. But thank you for raising that point. And maybe, Chair, I can pick your mind in terms of technology and how you're trying to adapt to the very growing AI system. Do you believe with the young people that we have and the level of technology, that there's so much more that we can do as a young people to grow sustainable cities.
Yeah, sustainable cities and populations, I think, are going to be fascinating and quite intriguing over the next 20 years, 25 years. Hopefully, I'll still be about to be able to see
Amen
that.
to that.
But it is, when we look at AI, I remember the days before we had methodologies in building software and all this kind of stuff. And then, all the methodologies arrived and we got there's a huge business set up behind these methodologies now. And people make all sorts of money out of training, out of the booklets there's a huge economy around, and it's in billions and billions of dollars. And that's just one small piece. I can now ask an AI to write some code, and it does it.
Yeah.
I can then say, tweak the code to do so and so, and it does it. And it's absolutely spot on and it works well. That would have taken a small group of people a huge amount of time. Now, that's a shift, not quite overnight, but within a matter of months that we've seen. That how do we cope with that in that time frame? Now, the changeability and adaptability of youth is tremendous. And I think they will find a way through that. And there will be something else to make the money on, and it will come to the fore. However, what happens in the meantime and the sustainability of it, because things do need to move. We have to move forward. I think the European Union is the first group that have put together any controls and laws around AI. And the rest of the world hasn't yet. And I think they're watching closely to see what happens with the EU as to the validity of it all. But if I think of my time back in HP, the number of trips I had down to Bangalore, around various software bits and pieces and stuff, and things we had going on, and some of the data centers we have there, it was huge, tremendous business. But when it all moved to India to start with, that was a big step, and it was, great concerns about everyone losing their job in the UK, in the US, and no one did lose their job, as it turned out, and I'm sure that won't happen this time round either. We created extra jobs, and I'm sure AI will create jobs as well. However, so you asked me about the challenge. I think the challenge is communication, as it always is with change, and it's managing that communication. I always liken it to a train journey. There will be some people that will jump on at the first train station and go all the way with us to wherever that endpoint is, and there'll be some people that won't jump on until a later station. And there'll be other people that decide they're not going to get on the train at all, and they will march off. And we will manage the whole of that. The AI sector and technology is with us now. Hey, we make great use of it within Global Youth Forum. If it wasn't, we wouldn't exist in the way we do. But challenges that face the youth, I'd say. Communication, we've talked about that already, and I'm not going to say any more than that. I think, but both Abba and Michael were spot on. I fully endorse that. Patience. Change takes time. It will not happen overnight. And young people, I know when I was one, why can't it be done now? Well,
very, very hard
to change the culture. It takes a little longer.
It definitely takes time.
Yeah, there are things now that I look back and I think, gosh, 30 years ago we wanted to achieve that. It's only now that they're starting to come real.
Very,
so
very true.
Patience.
Very, very
When you're trying to change a culture, a whole environment, it does take time.
I think maybe, Chair, allow me to be biased and say you have had better. You've had better training when it comes to patience, because majority of us, we've been brought up in an environment where everything is quick. Everything, like even in the world we live now, as you're saying, there's so much that is easily accessible. So sometimes it becomes very difficult for young people because we're so used to instant gratification that now when you tell us to wait longer, we're wondering, why do we need to wait? The time is now, we live fast and by the day. So I think, of course, as you're saying, that we need to understand that actually change takes time. And of course, there is also the difference in terms of how we communicate. And we need to come up maybe with better ways. And as Michael has already mentioned it, there are better ways in which we can communicate to ensure that there's that intergenerational equity. Once again, I think, Abra, had you raised your hand? There's a point. Oh, you okay? I thought I saw your hand raised.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'll just quickly come back in and say, if anyone's really interested and managing change, there's a wonderful, one of the methodologies for change. It's got theory of change.
Yes.
Really nice, really good, solid, robust reading. Good stuff.
I will definitely look for that. Thank you for that, Chair. And as we proceed, we're proceeding well. Thank you for all the insights. As I mentioned previously, if you want to engage with us or you have any questions, feel free to raise them with us and we'll be happy to respond. As you're concluding some of the discussions, I would like to ask Michael and Abra, if you were in charge of the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Sports and Arts in your country, what policy or policies would you adopt to further the cause in relation to our topic today? So maybe Abra, you can jump in.
All right, I'll take the opportunity to answer this question. Firstly, I would like to create awareness amongst the youth that there are a lot of processes, there are a lot of policies that the youth are unaware of. If in case we like streamline the process and bring about publicity in the people and awareness in the people that so and so are the schemes available for the youth, be it in terms of climate, be it in terms of sports, be it in terms of activities, leadership skills, team building, and all of those things, we'll try to like engage in bring in huge amounts of youth, like be it in terms of large numbers actually. So that small change can be impacted over lots and lots of people, so that volume of impact can happen at the same time, from be it from the ministry level and also from the on ground and support from a lot of youth and younger people. So if we try to streamline the process and show it to the people that the process is very easy, youth will definitely thrive for the change and they'll try to step in for the cause.
Okay, thank you for that, Abra. And allow me to pick the fact that you said education is one of your favorite SDGs. In terms of educating the public, because again, I think Michael mentioned about advocacy. I feel, and as you've highlighted, it is important to sensitize the young people about what policies already exist for them to understand what they already have in place. So in terms of educating the public, and especially the young people, maybe in your experience or in what you may have in mind, in your opinion, do you believe that the young people are willing to listen?
A lot, actually. A lot of people are ready to listen, but then we'll have to create an awareness and show it to the people in such a way that things are simple. For that, we need to have a process, a streamlined process, so that people try to come and adapt to it very easily, instead of showing that we have lots and lots of formalities to bring about the change that they expect. To be in the policy making, I also believe that people with disabilities should be given special like concerns, and special positioning has to be given to understand what are their needs, so that they can start advocating for the people from the community, and we can also be as an ally to them, so that we understand their needs, and a lot of it can be done from the policy making sense.
Forgive me for interrupting you. And I think the last one, just to tie to your point, do you believe that there's a better way in which we can deal with persons with special needs? So a lot of the times I've been in situations or conversations where the people with PWDs are saying, you giving us some of these special treatments makes us feel more secluded than we actually included in the process. So there was a debate, for example, instead of having a school for special students maybe with special needs, we have a general school, but they have maybe classes for people with special needs, so that they can integrate with the rest of the society. So maybe in your opinion, do you have maybe one way in which you think that we can engage the PWDs or people with special needs for them not to feel segregated more than they are maybe included or appreciated?
Right. It is good to have inclusivity and include the people in the same classroom. At the same time, But prior to that, I believe we will have to create an awareness amongst the people, so that the people start accepting that people with special needs take time. So considering that aspect of it, one might be a fast learner who can go on in a very fast pace, and people with special need, like for example, someone with dyslexia, as you mentioned, would take a little bit of more time to understand and grasp the concept. So at the same time, there'll be a small gap. That gap has to be bridged by creating an awareness. People with special needs are trying to like overcome and pick up the pace. So why don't we try to support and encourage them by accepting it, so that we can slow down our pace? For a person who is a fast learner can slow down the pace, it's easier, right? How many
Definitely,
of you agree
definitely.
with me?
I
Definitely, right?
agree with you. Unless
Yeah,
maybe Chair and Michael have an opposite view, but I agree with you. I completely agree with you. And
right.
Michael, maybe we can jump to you. Maybe what policy or policies do you think would work for us to create sustainable cities?
You see, sustainability provides for a platform whereby there is an interrelationship between the sustainable development goals. Sustainability does not provide for a platform of one sustainable development goal overriding the other. And so one of the policies that I would use to be able to engage the youth in ensuring a more sustainable community or city is through involving them. Like I said, this is the world that they are going to be living in tomorrow. So you need to involve them at all costs in the present day decision-making processes, so that then the decisions they make, they can be aware that the decisions they make do not only impact the present, but also the future, which they will be living in. And so, for example, if I were to, consider changes in, for example, a city, I will involve the youth who are disabled for me to hear what they have to say, those in the culture and heritage, because essentially, even if we are going to have a sustainable city or community, it doesn't mean that we do away with the cultures of that place. We need to consider the cultural heritage, so that even as we are planting trees, do we do away with that cultural heritage site that is there? You see, on one end, we are promoting climate change, but on the other, we also have to consider the cultural heritage and all these other sustainable development goals. So the only way we can be able to achieve is through a more sustainable city or community, is through involving everybody, and more so the children and the youth, who will not only live in the world tomorrow, but also are there presently. It shocked me that at the United Nations level, that children are involved in the budget process. There's a in terms of the children's rights, I was going through that, and one of the resolutions that was passed was that children, who are representatives of the certain or rather specific nations, are involved in the budget, processes. And at the United Nations level, we are talking about billions of money and millions of money, and yet the children are involved in the budget process, process making, and execution processes. So if we can involve the children at multidisciplinary and multicultural institutions such as the United Nations, then why can't we involve them in a city, let's say like Kilifi, in a town like Nairobi, that even as the governor there is passing resolutions and decisions, that they are able to ensure that these decisions consider everyone's input, and more so the children and the youth, because it's, in any other words, it will be their world tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I think you've broken it down quite well. I don't know if Chair has something to say, but before I give Chair maybe a chance, I'd just like to mention a few pointers, a few things that I've had from Michael's perspective. And I think I like the fact that you're also a lawyer. So you do know that sometimes when we do, there's a need for public participation when it comes to some of these things. For example, the County Integrated Development Plan, something that involves the county itself in terms of the town or the city. And most of these public participation forums that I have had maybe the privilege of attending, I have not seen very many young people. And in fact, the people that I've seen there are the almost the same people that keep coming for the same public participation forums. And so you see the mindset is still going to be retained. We're still going to have the same mindset. So I think in terms of young people, that's why I was even asking earlier, is there an interest? Because some of these things that are more legislative, they feel so procedural for a lot of young people, and they'd rather deal with something much more fun. So maybe that is something we can consider and see how best to engage them moving forward. But maybe, Chair, I can allow you to jump in and maybe share your thoughts.
It's a problem that it is not just Kenya or Faces Kenya, it's a lot of places, the disconnection between governance and actually young people. They no longer feel part of that system, and that is quite concerning. Both, I think, from the point of view of the elected people, because it's only a smaller group, you know, it's a small group electing them, but also from the young people, because they're not getting what they want. Goes back to my point earlier, really, around the right channels to communicate through.
It's very true.
Michael made a wonderful point. Sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. I'm the one who interrupted you.
You know, Michael made a very valid point, and I'd already written down, wouldn't it be great if governance of a country were part of a global education system? Because that would also include running the school, is what I wrote. They would very quickly see the impact of a decision on another department or finances. And that really, I think, is something that one of the business tools I use with young people is, for a number of weeks, we talk about running a business and how you do that and various things. And then I actually give them a business to run. And that's a small stall that's producing some lemonade or a drink of some kind. And they have to look at marketing. They have to look at all these different bits that make up a business. And they suddenly realize the complexity of that. They can't just pick this up and go out and sell lemonade, because no one's going to know they're going to sell it. No one's going to, you know, there's a whole backstory that goes with it. And they very quickly, you know, some very adaptive ideas and, you know, really fantastic thoughts come out. And if you apply those back into business, you know, that's it's so the whole thing about understanding how those things work is always a value. And I don't think we do that enough with young people. You know, I also believe wholeheartedly, and the reason I do that and give them that is because I know they will rise to the challenge. You give young people a good, and they will rise to it every single time. I have never been let down. Never. I hope I'm not on the next time now.
We're hoping for the best.
And when it comes to the other thing for inclusion and equality around education, I would say we all have disabilities of one kind or another. You know, I didn't used to wear these things. I can't, you know, I've suddenly lost the screen now. We all have disabilities, and some young people will wear glasses, some young people will be hard of hearing, some young people will have ADHD, we all have those disabilities of one kind or another in the education system. Why can't they be in one school? Because society will learn to accept each other much sooner, much earlier, and we won't have the divisions that occur. Come on, people, do it.
I completely agree with you. Thank you for that insight. And I think also there's a point, I've seen Michael is back. There's a point you mentioned about the cultural norms and maybe the culture and heritage. I wanted to tie something on cultural norms, and I love the fact that you mentioned that children are participating in some of this, maybe what we would consider a high level platform, and especially in our Kenyan context. I don't know if Abra can relate maybe from their end, and maybe the chair. In terms of the young people, for us in our Kenyan environment, children are probably the least respected people. And most of the times their insight is really not considered. So you find that even in places where we would want to engage them from a very young age, but the society, maybe for example, the school system, the home system, we don't see the point of engaging them in adult conversations. So most of the times you find that we really disregard their input in that. So maybe I think also, Michael, as you mentioned, maybe there's a better way in how we can change our culture so that we can be able to have a lot of these young kids actually participating in some discussions, so that by the time they're young adults, they are able to actually influence change. Because as you've mentioned, the UN has actually very good platforms for young people to engage, even in terms of what should I, there's this thing they call the Model United Nations, where you find young kids, even in high school levels, are able to participate and learn how to engage at such a global platform. So I think there's a need to change how we look at the input of these very young kids, especially the children. Of course, by young children, we wouldn't expect an 8-year-old to really do much there, but maybe from the age of 13 and above, I feel that there's a need for us to also have them on board. So thank you for that. I see a question for you, actually. One of the listeners is asking, how can the legal community engage with and support local communities in promoting peace, justice, and strong institutions? That's SDG 16, as you mentioned. And maybe what are the key challenges in ensuring justice, access to justice, and what can we do better? So because it's quite a long question, allow me to just break it down for you. You can maybe tell us how the legal community can be able to engage with and support the local community in promoting peace and justice. And then maybe what is one challenge that you feel prevents access to justice for a lot of these young people that we can address in our Kenyan legal context?
Thank you for that question, and apologies for the disconnect.
Now, okay.
Allow me to refer to the question. So when we talk about the legal community engaging with the local community, I want people to go down to the level of, a village or a school that is nearby. Basically, the local environment that one resides or, resides basically. So how can one ensure that from that place of residence that they can then ensure that the community around them is more aware of about these laws and policies and regulations? One of the main ways that one can be able to do so is by providing legal aid. For example, if you have neighbors, if you have people in the community who have legal challenges, perhaps they want to understand certain policies or regulations, you can be able to do that, at a free level, because I believe that when these people are more informed, then it will also be good for business on the lawyer's part. You see, most lawyers don't want to give advice on the, on the background that, I went to school, I studied this, and so I can't just use my advice anyhow. You have to pay me, which I really disagree with. Once these people are able to know that certain processes need advocates and lawyers, then the more they will be able to, engage with the advocates and the lawyers. Secondly, and why one of the challenges that we are really experiencing, and you see we have not been able to achieve, access to
internet
technological advances.
Michael, we lost you a bit far. Could you just repeat the last point, the last point you were telling us?
Yes, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yes, so I'm saying that one of the challenges that we are really facing is the fact that the judiciary and government institutions have failed to embrace technology. I believe that if the judiciary embraced technology to its fullest by, digitalizing some of those processes, I mean, I don't see why a judge should be writing for 3 hours. I mean, what are they writing? Why can't we record that, court session, and then have a system that is able to take notes. We are talking about artificial intelligence, which when you look at the Gen Z, they were able to come up with, ChatGPTs that would be able to explain what the finance bill has, what the information communication technology bill contained. So if institutions, both in government and the judiciary, embraced technology to its fullest, then we will be able to achieve, a sustainable access to justice. And I mean, technology is one of the issues that is really emphasized in across all the SDGs. That, I mean, look at today when people are using AI to deal with, climate change and its effects. I mean, so I don't know why Kenya, we are taking too long to embrace, technology. A file shouldn't have to come from the police station to the ODPP and then to the courts. I mean, they should just have a digitized mechanism where the statements are able to be sent to the court and recorded. And so that is really one of the aspects that I really feel that the government and the judiciary is failing. Thank you.
And I like the way you're mentioning that digitization is actually important for us to be able to have a more sustainable city. And I think also I will be able to answer, I think one of the key challenges I've seen in my experience about the fact that about the rights of these people, because sometimes you find someone and you tell them, why not pursue a legal action, and they'll tell you, I did not know that this is something that I can be able to do, or it's something I can be able to get access to justice for. So maybe there's a need, the good book says people perish due to lack of knowledge. So maybe there's a need for us to ensure that a lot of these young people are able to access knowledge to be able to do better. And I see Abra was also saying that the youth can bring fresh perspectives to the table, whereby they get to question some of the societal norms. To our guests, thank you so much for that. And this last part, in 1 minute, I want to kindly request that you give your call to action. What would you give as your call to action to the young people? And I'd be able to give a minute each. That is also inclusive of the chair. So I'll start with Abra, and then Michael, and then the chair can conclude for us. So Abra, feel free to go.
So my call to action for the youth is to transition from non-renewable resources to renewable resources. That would be the smallest of the change which each one of us can embrace to see a better change and the society.
Oh, thank you for that, Abra. Michael?
My call to the youth is that, let us get involved. Let us be aware. Let us strategize even in our advocacy mechanisms, so that we can ensure that the decisions that are made include not only us, but children, because at the end of the day, the present day decisions are really impacting us. For example, if we look at Africa, look at the past decisions of government taking IMF loans. It's really affecting the present. And so this has really proved that if we do away with intergenerational equity, then we cannot be able to have a sustainable environment. I thank you.
Thank you for that, Michael. And Chair?
Yes, thanks, Val. These things are always fascinating, aren't they? As soon as you say something, you think, I should have changed the way I did that, said that, whatever. So here we go. For me, it goes like this. We're all together on this small rock hurtling through space, and we all impact each other. Anything we do, and we now know, will have an impact on the rest of us. So be aware of the impact of your actions. Think, plan, execute on that plan, but be prepared to change the plan. I have never minded changing any plan in all the times that I've been running some very large programs and projects, some multi-billion-dollar in HP, that change the plan. It doesn't matter in the big scheme of things. Let's get it right for everyone. That's the important thing. So not focusing anywhere particular, but it's, think. So that's strategy, plan, and execute, and be prepared to change that plan.
Thank you
We
so
all
much for
benefit.
that. Definitely, I agree. It's a team effort. And as we say at GYF, together we are strong. So I completely agree with your statement. And I think mine is to just say thank you, a very, very big thank you to our guests, Abra and Michael. Thank you so much for making the time and attending the session. To our chair, thank you for joining us. We've had an excellent time having you engaging on the topic as well. To our listeners, thank you. And to, of course, my team behind the scene, there's Justin, there's Peter, Kelly from the GYF team. Thank you so much again for being with us. And I think I will just conclude by saying, for those who are listening to us, kindly follow us on our social media pages at Global Youth Forum. Like, share, participate with us, engage, call us. We are very much willing and very much available to engage with young people. And there's so much, as I mentioned earlier, there's so much at GYF that you can be able to benefit from, for us to have a poverty-free country, a poverty-free continent, and of course, hopefully, the world will join us in our feet. But for now, I want to say thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.